I'm from, when black folks started revolutions, they never had the firepower or the resources to fight their oppressors. Where was Wakanda? You know, that ends today. We got spies embedded in every nation on Earth, already in place. I know how colonizers think, so we're gonna use their own strategy against them. We're gonna send vibranium weapons out to our war dogs. They'll arm oppressed people all over the world, so they can finally rise up and kill those in power, and their children, and anyone else who takes their side.
It's time they know the truth about us. We're warriors. The world's gonna start over, and this time we're on top.
The sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my review of What If Marvel Killmonger Rescued Tony Stark. Now, I have to say that we've come off a roller coaster ride of the last 2 or 3 episodes, which have been absolutely fantastic. This one's a little bit more of a real backstory. Now, real in terms of the origin of this starts exactly when the MCU starts. Might be the most alarming. It's no frills. I get it. It's not all the world-conquering, universe-conquering episodes we've had of previous shows, but it's the most effective in its storytelling. This was a character from the MCU that didn't get enough time. A lot of people were saying, oh, he's brilliant, he's amazing, I loved him as a villain, and Killmonger was great, but he just didn't get enough screen time to sort of quantify that. Easy for Thanos, because he had multiple amount of movies to sort of tell his backstory and give himself that depth and exposition. It wasn't really the same with Killmonger. So I get that people really liked him, but he was also flawed in his actions, in my opinion. I loved the Black Panther movie, but I didn't like the ending because of Killmonger's reasons. I felt that they didn't represent his real character in the comics. Erik Killmonger, if you forgot his plan, he systematically tried killing other Wakandan refugees as a misdirection ploy. Now, this means that he would have brought revenge upon the world for systematically brutalizing Africans. So the question is what would he have been able to do if he took a different route to his plan? And that's what this episode is really about. And it's done in such a way that it's so smart, because remember, this isn't a guy who didn't know what he was doing. He was very smart, charismatic. Yes, I agree that Killmonger is nothing but a murderer and a dictator, but he was suave, stylish, and the ideology motivated him to the point where he was a villain. But you can see plenty of that in this episode, way more than in the movie, really. In the movie, just sort of he appeared, he had a few scenes where he was on a heist and trying to do, but it doesn't really give you the depth and the backstory of his plan. He didn't really set things up in that way, and it's probably the reason why in the movies he's failed, and the reason why in the What If series he succeeded. Now, some of the things that he says does make sense. It's very difficult not to empathize with somebody like himself, a black man grown up in Queens. With a lot of what he's saying, you can identify with that. It's just his methods. In this respect, Killmonger is not just pure evil. Death just comes with him everywhere he goes. And there's just a hint of sadness to his character because he is redeemable. We know that from the comics. And you remember, guys, he was even in the Avengers team. He was in the Avengers in the comics. So we know he's redeemable. And this sort of brings me to the end of Black Panther when he's sitting down with T'Challa and then they're having a chat as he's dying. To me, it's kind of like that kind of didn't sell me the way. I didn't buy into all of that. But at the same time, we know he's bitter, he's spiteful and powerful as well. And it's really about capturing that streak of malice. And that's what this episode does here. And the voiceovers are really, really great too. The whole policy of sort of destabilizing nations via agents at critical moments, he brings all of that. And it requires the setup, the understanding of the conditions, and getting the timing right. In the Black Panther movie, he just gets it all wrong, and that's why he's defeated by T'Challa. So in this What If story, it's much more rounded and foolproof as a plan. So in the movies, he wasn't using Wakandan technology. It wasn't an advantage for him. His plan just went ahead with what he had, and his little revolution was crushed easily by a unified Wakanda. But in this episode, it's the complete opposite. He uses that knowledge and uses Wakandan technology, aka vibranium, to his advantage. So when Tony Stark is ambushed in Afghanistan, when he traveled to showcase the new Jericho missiles, hint hint, Wei Wu from the Shang-Chi movies was the person that originally started Iron Man's origin. You know, we see the same shots where he's in the Humvees and the soldiers and him were toying around and peace, you know, I'd be out of a job with peace and things like that. But then their vehicles are heavily abrupted when they come under heavy gunfire. Missiles, gunfire begins raining on their convoy. So this is the whole nexus point. You know, every week we talk about what was the nexus point. The nexus point was around Tony Stark's origins. When that missile landed next to Tony Stark, it exploded and a piece of shrapnel got near to his heart and he had to make the arc reactor. In this, Killmonger brings himself into infiltrating the Ten Rings and uncovers a plan to capture Tony Stark and use him to arm the terrorist organization of Wingwu from Shang-Chi movie. So acting on this information, Killmonger appears during the Ten Rings' violent attempt to grab Tony Stark. And Killmonger saves him. That means that Tony Stark never gets captured. He never goes into the cave. His heart never is pierced by the shrapnel, forcing him to never create the arc reactor. No arc reactor, no Iron Man. So you can see where this is sort of really going in that way. So we get plenty of returning voices. Michael B. Jordan is there. The late Chadwick Boseman is there as well. Angela Bassett. John Carney is there as King T'Chaka. Andy Serkis as Ulysses Klaue. They brought literally everybody back. John Favreau, Happy Hogan, Paul Bettany as Jarvis. So replacing the original characters, they only had obviously Mike Wingward as Tony Stark, Beth Hoyt as Pepper Potts, and in Xioma as Shuri. Also, Mike McGill played as General Thaddeus Ross as well. So there are a few changes in the voice-ups, but it's not that much that you notice a real big difference. So Stark now chooses to promote Killmonger to Obadiah Stane's opposition to create like an anime tech drones. And these look something straight out of Gundam. I know he also says, you know, I like anime. But Pepper Potts is uneasy with all of this, feeling that Killmonger is hiding his true intentions. Now, the drones can't be completed due to a lack of viable power source. And this is where I actually thought it was quite funny, because Stark actually considers making an arc reactor technology, which, remember, his dad always tried to work on but didn't really crack. He thinks about it and then he goes, yeah, nah. And then it's quite funny because he disregards it as a pipe dream. But Killmonger talks up how vibranium could do the job better, and he sacrifices his necklace, the heirloom, to make it work. So we all know that this is something that was shown early on in the movie, but it wasn't really shown in this series until halfway through. It's funny because you don't really see it on his neck until he pulls it out as a source of energy. Now, James Rhodes, War Machine, acts on Stark's behalf that when things go to hell, Black Panther, he steps in and tries to interrupt the meeting and with Ulysses Klaue to take back his country's vibranium. Killmonger then appears. He kills them both. So he kills Black Panther and he kills James Rhodes. And then he goes back to kill Tony Stark with a vibranium spear from the Dora Milaje. So he's actually used that to blame the Dora Milaje, that in telling everybody that they were the ones that killed Tony Stark. And thus a war begins to brew between the United States and Wakanda. It's so well done, guys. It's so well set up. So Killmonger, in this battle, he sets up the battle between the Stark drones and the Wakandans. He leads the Wakandans to victory. Because remember, he built the drones with Tony Stark. So he obviously knew how to depower them or make them, you know, easy to defeat. So, of course, he's controlling them. And Shuri's not fueled by this. So because Shuri's a tech head, and by the way, guys, this, remember, was in 2008, not 2020. You're seeing a teenager. You're seeing like a 12, 14-year-old version of Shuri. So I know it confused a lot of people, but this was a chibi Shuri. Yeah, it wasn't the Shuri we knew and love in Infinity War and Endgame. So she's not fooled by this at all, and she's working alongside Pepper Potts in the hope of exposing Killmonger and prevent the war from escalating. Now, while this is going on, Killmonger ingests the heart-shaped herb, becoming the new Black Panther as the United States prepares to eradicate Wakanda. So, I have to say, guys, absolutely brilliant. For me, I have to give this a 7.5 out of 10. I think this was a solid episode. It was the third episode by Chadwick Boseman as well, and maybe his last ever. I think that there's a few things that he might have done as cameos, but this pretty much was it for him. And I just stepped back and felt, you know, he struggled to do the voiceovers as he was very ill when he shot this. And it was the first episode that was kind of anticlimactic as well. In other words, we were actually waiting for a part 2 because they didn't finish this tale. So I really want to see where this goes. There's only 9 episodes in this season, remember, so there's only 3 episodes left. Very difficult for them to kind of tie up everything now, so I'm thinking that they're going to have to really rush this thing forward. Either they're going to save the multiverse villain, which I keep saying is Ultron, to the end, or they're going to start some setup for that now. So I'm really hoping that they do that, but I don't expect them to pay off what happens in this episode until season 2, which comes next year. But let me know what you guys think of it. Great episode, guys, absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to leave it right there. Speak to you guys in the next one. Peace.